Hello and welcome to the Election Corner on One Man Think Tank. Today we're going to be asking a question that I think some people are starting to ask themselves now as Jaime Harrison gains in the polls. Is his race versus Lindsey Graham for the South Carolina Senate seat going to be another Beto O'Rourke, where people get really hyped up but at the end of the day they lose? To do this, we actually need to compare the Beto O'Rourke and Ted Cruz race versus the current Senate race, which we'll get to doing that. But let's start off by doing Texas first. Now, I'm using Wikipedia because Wikipedia's summarization of the polling because it really does give you a better snapshot of all the polls done, including internals and some major outliers from some, let's say, less reputable pollsters that end up being in the discussion anyway that get people hyped. Now, for those of you who don't know or weren't paying attention in 2018, the prime Senate race everyone was following was Beto O'Rourke versus Ted Cruz. Could the Democrats flip Texas? Beto seemed like the guy. He didn't. The final race was about 51% for Ted Cruz, 48% for Beto O'Rourke. That is very good for the Democrats. They normally lost by much more. And it showed that Texas could, in fact, at the very least, be made close. And Beto's race most certainly gave the Democrats a few more seats in the Texas State House and federal legislature. But let's take a look at, we have about 6 months of data here going from April 2018 to November 2018. The rest of these aren't that interesting. However, I will take a brief moment to mention the Texas Lyceum poll. This is the poll that made everyone go, oh, maybe a Democrat could win Texas, ignoring the fact that there's a stupidly high amount of undecided voters. Because this was really the only polling we had out of Texas. We're going to see there were a couple more with like Joaquin Castro that were back in 2016, but they had Joaquin Castro and Beto O'Rourke, the two candidates who were expected to run. And this is what we had, and then the Democrats won Alabama, despite the odds, and it was pretty, it was really close, but the Democrats won Alabama, which got everyone thinking, maybe they could win Texas. So now, let's take a look at the polling. As you can see, starting in April, we see Beto's hovering around mid-30s, low 40s area. But as the race starts to heat up, he starts to get some good press and some news. We see, 40. He's going up to the low 40s, mid-40s, low 40s. But he hovers around there with some minor outlier polls, such as this one, which I believe was an internal. The Ipsos poll was one of the ones that really kind of springboarded him from being stuck in low 30s to getting a bunch of undecideds to vote for him. And this Vox Populi polling, I know, circulated a bit, but not massively. But the rest of these polls came out and were kind of paid attention to, but kind of ignored. Because it didn't really go with the neck-and-neck narrative. But as you can see, by the end of it, you can kind of see where it's going. We see the undecideds break for, and others break for Beto O'Rourke in most of these polls. But Ted Cruz, overall, the entire time, is hovering between high 40s and low 50s. Like, if we look at the averages, Ted Cruz is basically a straight line. Well, Beto, you've got a slight incline. Not massive, but slight incline. Which shows Beto that, in reality, it seemed Texans have a low floor. Texas Republicans have a low floor for themselves. Well, Democrats don't seem to have any similar thing. So the question was, could Beto O'Rourke pull enough people away from Ted Cruz? And the answer basically was no. However, and this is a key point, we're going to look over at the current Texas Senate race, which is MJ Hagar versus John Cornyn. And as you can see, we're actually seeing something very similar here if Beto had never gotten that one really good poll showing him ahead, or the hype behind him. That sort of mid-30s, low 40s area. However, and this is really key, Cornyn is only around mid 40s, with some drops into the 30s, but overall mid 40s. This says that overall, Beto really just, in many ways, if we look back at this, Beto didn't do something special in Texas. He just ran a real campaign in Texas. And if Democrats campaign well enough, they can get to the mid-40s with ease. Hagar started campaigning about here in September, and we're noticing a slight emphasis on slight polling increase. And we can see as the undecideds go down, both groups are going up, with them being a little bit closer in the actual polling. So it seems that Democrats can make Texas competitive, but not necessarily win it yet. But we didn't come here to talk about Texas. I'll probably have another video for that later this week or next week. No, this week we're talking about, can Jaime Harrison, is he the next Beto? And I'm going to say, let's take a look. So early on, back in 2019, he gets some good numbers, but not amazing. While Lindsey Graham's above 50s at this point, myself and every other person saying, South Carolina is safe, no problem. And then we get this poll. The Civitas Daily Coast poll, which, Civics Daily Coast poll, which showed them tied. And this was less, oh, Jamie's doing really well, and more, ooh, Lindsey Graham's doing really bad. But we kept watching, and then you see a drop for Lindsey Graham, where now instead of being 50s and high 40s, it's mid 40s and high 40s. While Jaime goes up from being 30s, low 40s to low 40s. Not mid 40s yet, but now we continue to watch this growth, and if we start about here, we're in the same 8-month period that we were looking at here. With, now as you can see, we got a lot more Texas polling, I think, than we're getting, yeah, definitely more Texas polling, but about this sort of, we'll start with May, actually, just to make it even on both sides, but slight boost for Beto, but nothing massive. While over here, Jamie's starting to have something similar, but the key point is he's starting to go higher. So mid-40s, high 40s, while Lindsey Graham is starting to go lower. That's the key component here. Beto slightly gained, but Ted Cruz never changed. Well, if we go up here, those are two pretty distinctive bars. So, what does this mean? This means Lindsey Graham is losing support and Jaime Harrison is gaining it. And, very importantly, Graham's supporters are going to Harrison. They're not going to undecided, because we've got the undecided bar down here, and while it's decreasing, it's really not that much of a... It could sway the election if they all broke for one candidate, but overall, undecided voters, you can assume, will probably stay home or default to the prevailing winds of the state, so it could save Lindsey Graham. But I will say, Harrison actually seems to be launching a true insurgent campaign, where now he's starting to poll more often in the high 40s. I don't know if... I believe this one was an internal poll, but the Quinnipiac one wasn't. Data for Progress, which does lean to the Democrats, shows a very competitive race, and that's what we're seeing in here. So, unlike Beto O'Rourke, who already kind of had a high floor for Texas and made some gains, Jaime Harrison was in a pit and has built himself up, while Lindsey Graham is falling, and the key point here is we don't have any October polling yet. October looks like it's going to be the worst month for the Republican Party, and that could cost Lindsey Graham his seat. So, if you're wondering if Harrison's just going to be a Beto O'Rourke where, it was nice, he did better, but he didn't ever really have a chance. Nope. Jaime Harrison has a serious chance of winning South Carolina. And with that being said, if you liked the video, drop a like down below and also a comment. I'm curious to hear your opinions on the matter. If you want to see more from the channel, click the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be alerted when new content comes out. If you want to see me outside of YouTube, I have a Twitter at OneManThinkTan1, the Roman numeral. link in the description. And most importantly, as always, have a wonderful day.